Oh boy, I can't wait for a future where everybody only works for the government. Doesn't that sound wonderful? But don't call them communists. Trust the experts. Trust the experts. I knew back then. That was a deal breaker for me. That was it. When I saw the scientific community, I already was healthily distrusting experts. But when you just saw the blatantness, yeah, you can get COVID if you go to the Trump rally, but not if you go to the Black Lives Matter rally. That was it, man. I tuned out. I'll still argue the data. I will, but I don't trust it. I don't. I don't trust the job numbers. I don't trust the FBI crime statistics. I don't trust the immigration numbers. None of them. Again, that's not to say that they're all wrong. They may be truthful. Let's say you have a brother, and your brother lies to you all the time. Everything he says is bullshit, or you catch him all the time. Does that mean that if he tells you the next day, hey, did you see the Steelers won? Does that mean, that means the Steelers didn't win? No, they may have won. That just means you say, I'm not going to take your word for it. I'll look it up myself. So the same people, the same economists that were telling us that we weren't in a recession, it was one of the strongest economies ever, there was nothing mentally wrong with Joe Biden, Trump would be a disaster, the stock market would crash in 2016 if Trump got elected, then it didn't. The massive money printing and shit and the lockdowns were necessary, and then it was terrible. But I had to trust those same people and their data that was coming out saying, inflation's not as bad as, we're not in a recession, inflation's not as bad, it's over. Job numbers are killing it. And then what you would see is like every 2 or 3 months, I think of the last 12 months, 10 of the months, I could be wrong about the specifics on this, they revised the numbers downwards months later. So let's say they come out and they say, job numbers beat expectations this month. 250,000 jobs expected. And actually we came in at 300,000. They beat expectations by 50,000 jobs. Wow. Great news cycle for Biden and the Democrats. And then 3 months later, they're like, and we're revising those numbers down 80,000. Oh, so then it didn't beat expectations. It came in below expectations. That was occurring all the time. Then on top of those already diminished numbers that we found out months later, now they're like, and by the way, we overestimated, in addition to that, 800,000 jobs. Almost 1 million jobs. But don't worry, government sector jobs are still up. It was just the private sector jobs that they overestimated. Oh boy, I can't wait for a future where everybody only works for the government. Doesn't that sound wonderful? But don't call them communists. Don't use that word. Price controls, massive expanding government. But it's not communism. It's not socialism. So now the job numbers come out. See the reason. So I'm no expert in this, but this is what's sort of going on. Inflation's really bad throughout the Biden administration, right? But they want to raise rates to stop the inflation. The Fed wants to raise rates to stop the inflation. And they say the economy's doing good, so we could raise rates. See all the job numbers? Now they need an excuse to lower rates. So they come out and say, actually, the job numbers were bullshit. Now they're lower rates, which will be good for Wall Street, but it'll bring inflation back up, which will hurt you, me, average people, middle class, working class people. It's all bullshit. If Trump wins, though, which I don't expect, but if he does, then all of a sudden the economic data will be like, it's all fucking miserable, it's shit. If we're told price controls are the problem, see, it's not inflation, it's not the massive money printing or the lockdowns or the disastrous policies of the Harris-Biden administration. No, it's because all of a sudden, corporations got greedy under Harris-Biden. They weren't greedy under Trump. They weren't greedy under Bush. But for some reason with Harris and Biden, it's all those evil corporations' fault. Of course, when you look at grocery store chains, turns out that their profit margins haven't got much better during the Harris-Biden administration, but who gives a shit? Price controls for them, baby, because they've worked so many times in the past. I'm sure it'll be different this time, right? The buck stops here, so says Biden. Biden doesn't even know what the buck is. Now, when academia is almost solely on the side of the institutions and paying lip service to the causes of the left, you know how hard it is to do debates? For example, let's do an immigration debate. Well, the Cato Institute says, and this academic research paper says, and this paper says, and they're all like, immigration's always good, and illegal immigration's good, and illegal immigrants are better than Native Americans because they commit less crime, and they bring culture, and they actually help the economy. That's what all the studies say. See? The studies. Let's go to the experts. Let's see what the scientists say. Then you see how it plays out in the real world. Okay. In the real world, if that's true, how come every time we send these illegal immigrants to democratic places with huge amounts of resources like Martha's Vineyard, they can't handle it? Why are they freaking out in Chicago? Why are they freaking out in New York? Wouldn't it be the more illegals we send, the better it would be? Why don't the economists go talk to those people? Why don't the academics say, oh, no, you're mistaken, person who's lived in this town for 40 years? These people are enriching your town. Can't you see it? Victor David Hanson has this quote. I'm going to butcher it, but it's something like this. It's a wonderful quote. He says, Democrats always prescribe to you a utopia they'll never have the misfortune of living in. So you can see Michelle Obama go on stage at the DNC and talk about generational wealth. How these out-of-touch rich people live. And they're not like that. And the United States doesn't have the right to say who's American or not. We don't have the right to protect our borders, says Michelle Obama, who lives in a gated community. It's real easy to say Americans shouldn't have guns, Americans shouldn't worry about who's coming into their communities and stuff. When you have armed security in gated neighborhoods, real easy. Oh yeah, the UK's loving their immigration now. But just look at the numbers. Look at the numbers. It's all good. All the studies say it's good. Oh, and they also say climate change is going to kill us all by 2020. I mean 2025. I mean 2030. I mean 2040. And whatever. I went to this Pentecostal church growing up where they speak in tongues and stuff. It was kind of crazy. And I remember there were people in that community, not at my church, but there were people in that community that would like predict revelations. They'd be like, you know, March 17th, I've seen a vision, March 17th, 1999, that's it. That's when the rapture will happen and hell on earth will begin and the noble souls will be taken to heaven. And then that date comes and they go, I got it wrong. Actually, it's going to be 3 years later. It's going to be March 17th, 2002. And then that date comes and like, got that one wrong. I just misinterpreted something. Actually, what point do we call bullshit in the climate change people? But Al Gore had those hockey stick graphs, right? Why is the plans always that the poor and working class pays more? Why is that always the plan? Every one of these policies result in working stiffs getting screwed over more. Why is that? That's the way it was with COVID. Sorry, you got to tighten your bootstraps, man. Joe Schmo worker, Joe Schmo small business owner. Sorry, dude, you're going to pay the brunt of this. Don't worry, though. The wealthiest Americans are going to be enriched. And the people that are scamming the COVID relief funds, they're going to get enriched. But you that just wants to go to work and provide a service and have your own business, sorry, dude, it's on your back. Oh, and guess what? When we have to send more money to Ukraine, sorry, that's going to be on your back, too. You got to sacrifice there, too. We don't have time to worry about your economic woes. You gotta tighten your bootstraps a little more, man. Sorry. Oh, inflation still getting you down? Hey, man, tighten those bootstraps. You remember there are articles that was like, there's no inflation. And then it was a little bit of inflation's a good thing. And then it was like, well, Americans are too greedy anyways. They need to learn to live with less. Not them, though. Just like the people that were telling you that you had to be locked down, like Gavin Newsom, was heading to the French Laundry for fancy dinners. The rules don't apply to them. You see, you're the serf, and they're the lords. It's just feudalism, baby. That's all it is, neo-feudalism. And the biggest impediment to it are people in the middle class in the Western world. But don't worry, they're doing their best to wipe them out. One open border at a time. One inflationary policy at a time.